I'm trying to figure out like what it is about romance novels that like makes us want to stay up all night reading them and,
Right?
stay up till 3 a.m. Like, is it the prose? Is it the tropes? Is it the emotions? Is it a conspiracy by the skincare industry to like make us all have dark circles because we're like binging these books?
They should be paying me then.
Yeah, right. I was like, what's going on? Did like some romance novelist 40 years ago cast a spell like with a witch, like an Etsy witch? Um, who knows?
Right.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to another episode of We Read It One Night. I am so excited to be joined here today by someone who I feel like I've name dropped several times on the podcast, and finally get to have on. Eloisa James, New York Times bestselling author of more than 30 romance novels, Shakespeare scholar, and my former college advisor. Welcome, Eloisa.
Thank you so much for having me. And look at this. We're so proud of you at Fordham.
Yeah,
Yay.
thanks so much for coming on. You're actually arguably the reason that this podcast exists because I came into college with a lot of internalized misogyny, like very much definitely was already a romance reader at heart, just not admitting to it. And then I was like, wait, this professor is like a best-selling romance novelist and a Shakespeare scholar, and she's brilliant. Like, what am I doing? Like, it like unlocked something within me. And
Yay.
then I think, and then Elodie like recommended my first romance book, and then we just took it from there. And now I've read your whole backlist, and I've read your most recent book that's coming out.
Yay.
When this episode comes out, it'll be coming out next week, listener, The Last Lady Bee. So get that as soon as it comes out, pre-order it. But I'm so excited to have you on.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes.
If you've been a professor, there is nothing better than seeing people thrive in something that you had a part in teaching them, even if in this case it was kind of remote. But
Yeah. Yeah. So you have a book coming out, The Last Lady Bee. And initially, when I was kind of envisioning you coming on the podcast, I was like, well, obviously, I can't have Eloisa James on the podcast without talking about Shakespeare, which I still want to talk about, like Shakespeare and romance. But then, as I was lucky enough, listener, to get an arc of The Last Lady Bee, and I tore through it, loved it. And listener was an eyeball read because it was an arc, so like that it was good for you, Eloisa. I'm normally an audiobook reader. So like eyeball reads are harder for me these days, but your book, Last Lady B was, and it was so interesting to me because I feel like it was like the convergence of three things that like one thing that's already a trend in romance, and then two things that are like becoming a trend or sort of I'm sensing a trend. And that was the fact that it was in first person,
Mhm.
which listener, if you've read any historical romance, like that's just not a thing in historical romance. It's gothic, which I feel like I've been seeing like with like romance novels that have come out in the last year that will be coming out. Like there's a lot of gothic romance kind of having a little bit of a resurgence. And it's going to be the inaugural book in Julia Quinn's is it a book club? The book service, like Kickstart, but
Subscription
like,
box. Yeah.
yeah, subscription box, but like the one she's doing via Kickstarter, which is also like we're seeing Kickstarters becoming sort of a thing in Romance Landia. So I guess like first, like I wanted to ask, like, what perhaps the most controversial choice? What made you write a historical romance in first person?
Well, because I'm enjoying it otherwise. I'm enjoying it in other genres. I can't read historical because my voice is leaky and I'll start sounding like Sarah McLean, right? So I tend to, and thank goodness Sarah wrote a contemporary because I could love that. But I'm just saying, I read contemporary, I read paranormal, I read a ton of romance, but
Mhm.
not historical. And so I was realizing that I was really loving the intimacy of first person because there is when you're in first person you're completely in that person's voice, and I found myself really paying attention to whether the hero came in one chapter or the hero didn't. It's much harder to portray the hero through the heroine alone without
Yeah.
and frankly, if you've written as many books as I have, you need to challenge yourself. Otherwise, you're
Yeah,
just calling it in. And we all know that,
totally.
right? A lot of the people, but way back when I signed my first contract, I was in coming out in hardcover with Potent Pleasures, and I was invited to a dinner party, and there were all
Yeah.
these really intense romance writers who were fancy and, fabulously rich, I thought. Anyway, none of them are writing anymore. No one at that
Oh.
dinner, partly because, some of them actually died, but also because you have to use the skills you had in college, right? For your podcast, it's changed over
Hmm.
time because you have to say, hey, things are different. Things
Hmm.
People want different things. And I don't know that everyone always wants to learn that, but I find that I
Hmm.
go on myself. So if I'm loving first person, then I'm going to write first person. If I'm
Yeah.
loving Gothic, I'm going to write Gothic. Let's just say it's kind of Gothic adjacent. That's what I call it because I
Yeah.
don't have any like gruesome scenes, and my heroine is, there's a ghost, but it's a really nice ghost, right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, but that's what I've found in sort of when I've been like seeing Gothic cropping up in romance because like it had with Alexandra Vasti's Ladies in Hating,
yeah.
India Holton. I think it's a book that comes out when we're recording this. It comes out next month in April. That's also a Gothic romance, but they're all sort of Gothic adjacent, right? And it's not
Yeah.
like grisly. They're sort of, I guess and I think you mentioned this in your author's note, like it's the Northanger Abbey
Hmm.
like tongue in cheek Gothic. I mean, you frequently, this book takes place in 1803, and you have Evie, your heroine, referencing, the mad woman in the attic trope that was popularized by Jane Eyre. So, yeah, it's sort of that like, yeah, I'm writing a Gothic, wink, wink.
Right. I love that too, though. I just thought I
Yeah.
really love a bit of the breaking of the wall these
Yeah.
days, so the author is closer to the readers. I mean, we're on social media, right? People talk to me all the time on DMs, and we're closer than we used to be when I went to that dinner party and everyone was all dressed up. Now I feel like my voice can be stronger in the way I would talk now. So Evie's little asides, that's my voice.
Yeah.
No. And so it
Yeah.
was really fun to write those. I loved it because it's just different and fresh and new. And yeah, I agree with you. This is a different book, and we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah.
I'm really proud to say that this week, which we're filming this in March, Publishers Weekly, which is the industry magazine, put me
Yeah.
on the cover this week because they
Oh
starred the
my
book, and also
gosh.
because they felt like it maybe was something different. And I think we need difference, right? We need
Yeah.
steps forward. So let's
That's
hope, fingers
amazing.
crossed, that all you readers out there love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the only other historical I can think of, especially like trad pub, you know, big author doing it is Joanna Shupe's The Gilded Heiress, which I haven't had the chance to read, but like that is the only other first person that I can think of in historical.
Yeah, I can't think of any. I mean, Lisa Kleypas was a forerunner in writing first
Hmm.
person, but she read them in contemporary. No,
Yeah. Yeah, you say Lisa Kleypas, and I was like, Lisa Kleypas wrote a first person
she
story.
read
Like,
some contemporaries, and they're great. They're great. I can't remember what they're
right.
called.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a while ago, but yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, why don't you think that historicals have made that leap yet? I mean, because like you said, you're reading first person and contemporary. First person is arguably like the POV
At the
in
moment,
romance and like
yeah.
mainstream romance right now. And, again, I'm sure people have said it before. I'm sure in 5 years we'll be back to third person,
Mhm.
because
Sure.
everything's cyclical. But yeah, why hasn't historical jumped on that trend yet?
I have no idea because again, I don't read too much historical. All I know is it took me a while to figure out that I wanted to do something different, and I had to change publishers too.
Mm.
I mean, HarperCollins did make a nice offer for this book, but I needed an editor who was going to support something new. And Carrie Farron, who's my editor at Gallery at Simon Schuster, was thrilled by the idea, and instantly went for it. And she published a Jane Austen anthology called Ladies in Waiting. And
Yes, I loved
yeah,
that.
all right.
Yeah.
Well, my story in there is in first
Yes.
person. So that was my first try. and
Yeah.
I loved it. So, so when you're doing something new, you need an editor. This is nothing on the editors that I had at HarperCollins who were wonderful, but you
Hmm.
need an editor who's willing to embrace that because it may
Hmm.
fail, right?
Right.
But I'm
Yeah.
at a point in my career, well, I've had several books fail, and it's not the end of the world. You know,
Right.
I've had books that step out and they fail, and I'm like, oh, too bad. Go back, try something else. I'm
Right.
hopeful, but I'm realistic.
And I think you especially, like, at least I've seen sort of the discussion around, or maybe this is something that I just like a conclusion I've sort of come to in my head with historicals because they're historical, you're like, oh, it can't be in first person because it would be too anachronistic or whatever. Um, which is, a separate conclusion. But I do feel like you in particular, because you have like such a broad range of expertise, both as a classic English literature scholar and a historical romance writer, a longtime historical romance writer, you were able to mesh that really well to sort of balance okay, this isn't Jane Eyre. I'm not reading Jane Eyre where it's like this is written by someone in the 19th century, but I still believe that this is a historical woman.
It's a balancing act, but if you look at historicals that have been written in the last decade, authors break down very much on how historically accurate they are. So Christy Caldwell, for example, writes wonderful, lively, enjoyable, fabulous stories. She's a little less interested in kind of adhering to historical parameters, and I've learned a lot from her. I used to get a lot of angry letters from people saying, you can't use the word suburb. And I would write back and say, get thee into the suburbs of my affection. And they would not write back because they think suburbs is modern. They don't want to know that it's not. But,
Yeah.
but I don't get those letters anymore. I think we've all kind of come to a grace period. I don't know if this makes sense, but I almost feel like instead of trying to enter the past, we're now
Mhm.
trying to exit the present. So we move
Mm.
into a space that is gentle, that is kind, that is romance friendly, that is woman friendly. I mean, it is not a good
Yeah.
time for misogyny, right? So
Right.
we leave the present and go there. And we want to take ourselves with us. We want to take the author we like that
Yeah.
we DM. We want to take the person we've seen on TikTok. We want that to come with us. We're not saying, I want to become an expert
Hmm.
on wigs in 1804.
Right.
I used to get those letters.
Yeah.
Like they were not using pink wig powder in 1804 until 1805. And I'd be
Oh
like,
my God. Yeah. You're like, this specific dye wasn't invented. Yeah. Yeah.
stuff like
Yeah.
that. I mean, they were often elderly men in Florida, to be honest, because in Florida, there's tons of romances in all the old people's
Hmm.
homes.
I
I don't know if we even
see.
call them that anymore. And they would read them and then they'd write me and say, da, 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 da.
But yeah, they just want someone to rant at. I am like, as an aside, I was like a nonfiction editor, and but not books that I personally acquired, but I did have to like take over for a former colleague a lot of military histories, and
Whoa.
those authors they would just call me and just talk about some obscure,
Yeah.
Battle of the Somme
Yeah.
fun fact. And I was like, you know what? This guy, this is an 80-year-old guy. And he just wants someone to talk to for a half hour. So I'll just sit here and I'm getting paid to do this and I'll
Yeah.
talk to you for a half hour.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
Military history is so hard. I remember I wanted
Yeah.
to include just a little American battle that happened, and I did so
Mm,
much research, and I got in the conversations with those guys, like some, guy in Colorado, and he was like,
yeah.
"Well, on that boat, this happened, that happened." Yeah, we exchanged like 50 emails, and then I couldn't put it in the book because it didn't work. Because
Oh.
I was like, "I'm sorry, it didn't work."
I'm sure he was just glad to talk to us. That's the thing, I mean, it's the same with romance reader, you just want someone to like talk to about this thing that you love so much.
It's true. It's a great community. I mean, romance, I think, especially in America, split the way it is now,
Hmm.
romance is one of the things that crosses that. So, like my
Yeah.
Facebook page, Lindau Castle, has an absolutely no politics rule. If you go in there and
Hmm.
start talking about anybody, political, you're out.
Yeah.
Charlene, who runs
Yeah.
my thing, will boot you instantly, which
Hmm.
means that we can all just be ourselves. We can just be people who love romance and who are like, if we bicker, it's going to be over whether the guy is alpha enough. That is really nice. I mean, I think romance can be a great community that pulls us together.
Yeah. Like, does that guy on the cover have a six pack or an eight pack? Which one
Yeah.
is it? Yeah.
Some good conversations. Or, why isn't your heroine as plump as she should be on the cover? I'm like, well, because I don't make the covers.
Yeah.
But that's a fun thing to discuss. Let's discuss the
Right.
misogynistic reason why my curvy heroine isn't all that curvy.
Right.
That's fine. I'm all over
Right.
that.
So do you think that sort of brings me to what I was sort of pondering over about Gothics and why we sort of have this like mini trend? And I mean, not just in romance, Wuthering Heights, just Wuthering Heights in quotes, just came
Yeah.
out. Frankenstein just came out.
Yeah.
The Gothic is back in the public imagination. Like,
Taylor Swift just said, give me a gothic. That's all I read.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So, like, what do you think that just like off the top of your head, musings? Why do you think the Gothic is having a comeback?
I don't really know. I mean, I I think that the Northanger Abbey, example, which is one of Jane Austen's least known books, but
Hmm.
Jane Austen had signed up for all the Gothic novels that have been published. We can see the subscription list, so we know she got them, like she pre-ordered them basically, right?
Yeah.
And then she writes her own Gothic, but it's kind of making fun of the Gothics in a
Mhm.
loving way, though. And,
Right.
I think that I want to believe there's ghosts. I want some danger. But you know what? I'm really not into at the moment the idea that, a terrorist might blow up Times Square, which I live not too far from. Um, so I think the Gothic offers us some fear, some creative, there is more to life than what we see here. There's a ghost,
Hmm.
etc. Um, at the same time, it's not too strong. We're
Yeah.
in a tough time, I know a lot of people your age are extremely nervous, right?
Yeah.
My daughter is 27 and, you know, I see it. I see it with her.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, it's yeah, and I think that that's historical romance overall is like the ability to explore these fears and these problems
mhm.
within the, quote unquote comfort of the past,
Yeah.
but in a way that still reflects unfortunately, the time that we're living in. But
There's a promise there. When you open a historical romance, and this is Lady B as well, right? When
mhm.
you open it, you know that the guy on the other end is not going to ghost you, right? The
Mhm.
hero. I mean, Anna is deep into the dating app, so I know all about Bumble and this and that and the other thing. So you're not going to have a conversation that goes on for 3 weeks and then he's gone. It's not going to
Mhm.
be that. He's not going to show up and he actually is a smoker when he said he wasn't a smoker. The hero is on the page and it's a place to go to remind yourself that this is a difficult time to meet someone and to have a deep
Mhm.
relationship, but it is possible, right? It's
Yeah.
possible and you need to keep hope and love in your heart in order to have that, I think. And I think romance gives you that. It says, hey, you can find this. You can find
Yeah.
this guy. You can find a relationship.
Yeah. I just need to marry an old guy, go to his Scottish estate, meet his solicitor slash ward, get snowed in,
Snowden is
fall in
key.
love. Yeah, snowed
Yes.
in. I mean, that's romance time immemorial. Like
Yeah.
snow is one of the best
Love
matchmakers.
snow. I got the wolves howling around the Abbey. So let me just say, for any of you who are historically accurate out there, I have already got a letter from someone saying there were no wolves in Scotland, but actually there were some wolves. So hey,
Were there?
there's different records, right? But
Yeah, you know what I did? I mean I would never be the person that would send you the letter, but as I was reading it, I was like, hang on, I thought England killed all their wolves, or like the UK killed all their wolves. And I
yeah,
looked it up and I was like, wait, no, there are some accounts
yep,
of people in the Highlands
yep,
killing wolves after this book takes place. So
exactly.
I was like, you know what? I'll accept it.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to go. I needed those howling wolves. Let's face it. I
Yeah.
needed the moon. I needed the snow. I needed the howling wolves. It's an atmosphere thing, and the
Yeah.
I loved the Abbey. This all came because my husband and I went on a tour of Wales. We had a car, and we just like pulled
Mm.
off at various castles and abbeys, and there's a million of them. You go
Ooh.
5 miles down the road, there's another one.
Right. Right.
So all the things you're seeing there is this wonderful trip we had in Wales, just traipsing through stone, sort of
Yeah.
buildings from long ago.
Did you get a chance to stay in like any converted castles that had been
No, because I'm kind of into
oh.
major comforts. But yes, I know there are serious luxury ones that would be fun if you wanted to go 5 star.
Yeah.
But
You're like, I like indoor plumbing and hot showers
yeah,
and
yeah, I don't like drafts. And Alessandra's from Italy, so he really doesn't like a draft.
but so you brought up Taylor Swift and the internet and Shakespeare, and you went kind of viral
I did.
last fall when the fate of a well, not the fate of Ophelia, I'm sorry, the life of a showgirl. There's so many titles to remember. The life of a showgirl came out, and particularly the song Fate of Ophelia, because you were like, I know Shakespeare, I know romance, like this is the song for me. So how is that sort of going viral for that? Having sort of, I feel like it probably you had a bunch of people who didn't know you as a romance writer and like
Yeah.
kind of coming into your space, coming into your comments, I'm assuming arguing with you.
Not that much. Um, I think people are afraid to argue with the Shakespeare professor. But yeah, it went over a million. And that was really interesting because my dad is a poet. Robert Bly was a poet,
Yes.
and Taylor Swift put his name in one of her songs that she co-wrote.
Hmm.
And so I'd had another Taylor Swift video. So I was sort of adjacent to the Taylor Swift crowd, I think,
Yeah.
because of that Robert Bly on my bedside, which is referring to my dad's books, right? So it was fun though. I really love talking about Shakespeare, and I have quit Fordham to write full time now. So I just quit on January
Congratulations.
1st. Yeah, it's very
Wow.
exciting. Yeah. I kind of
Wow.
miss it, and but it's fine. I love writing, and I've got so many projects going at the moment. I just
Yeah.
signed up to write a nonfiction book called Why We All Love Romance. So I'll have to talk to you about your podcast. And then
Amazing.
I'm writing a contemporary that's like a novel I wrote called Lizzie and Dante. So
Yes.
this one is currently called Fee and the Rock Star, and it's a version of King Lear a bit, where King Lear is the rock star who has to divide his money between his
Oh.
children. Not that you have to know anything about King Lear to enjoy the book, but I'm finishing that, and then I have a second Gothic coming out, and then I'm writing because you mentioned Kickstarters. I'm doing a Kickstarter.
Oh yeah?
Seems like
Okay.
that's really exciting right now. So I thought, you know what?
Yeah.
I would love. I'm writing four intertwined novellas, and they're
Okay.
called like, the contemptuous count's rejected wife, the vicious viscount's rejected fiance. They're all rejected, and
Yeah.
um, and they all intertangle. All the stories do, and they're going to come out as a box set. And so the Kickstarter will start in the fall. I've been really inspired by Julia
Yeah.
Quinn, because
Yeah.
we worked together a lot to make sure hers goes off and
Yeah.
takes off her subscription box because she was
Yeah.
kind enough to put my book in and make it number one. And so it's just been a like, oh, I can pick out the cover artist. Oh, I can,
Yeah.
this can be distributed by these people. This is so it's exciting. It's really exciting. And I hope it
Yeah.
takes off. I hope it flies. If it doesn't, I'll put them on KDP. It'll be fine.
Yeah. You
But
know.
yeah, but you're
Yeah.
right. And that Kickstarter seems to be kind of almost a parallel publishing track right now. Like
Hmm.
it obviously Brandon Sanderson is the big example, but other people too. I'm going to this conference in November called Author Nation, and it also has
Hmm.
Reader Nation. It's in Las Vegas in November. And so I was talking to the person who's running the conference last night, and they are doing Kickstarter. So they have a
Oh
romance
wow.
anthology Kickstarter and they have a graphic novel anthology Kickstarter. So this big conference is tied in with Kickstarter, and then the people who go to the conference will get those books. It's exciting. It's
Yeah.
fun.
It's almost like it's like a new branch of indie publishing, like indie
Yeah.
publishing uh, part of the draw of it is that you control
Yeah.
everything to do with your creative work, and Kickstarter is like the next step to that, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
there's really great people out there who will work with you.
Yeah.
I always thought like, oh my God, like I self-published a few novellas, but I bought the covers from Piatkus, which is my British publisher, because they published
Hmm.
them, as novellas over there. And so I bought those
Hmm.
novellas and brought them out here. But actually doing like the whole thing seemed kind of um, too much work. But
Yeah,
now there's
overwhelming.
wonderful, yeah, there's wonderful structure
Yeah.
for Kickstarter.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we saw that also with Adriana Herrera and Allie Hazelwood had their big Kickstarter, and that was like in the top 10 like most successful
Yeah.
publishing Kickstarters ever. So, yeah, it's like a huge it's kind of started off with a bang, and like you say, I'm so excited to hear that you're doing that. I feel like I have seen you throughout your career always like trying the new thing before
Mhm.
everybody else. Like you're very willing to, like you were saying, to take risks as an author, and like that's important.
Because I've been a professor, right? So I had a salary. It makes a
Right.
huge difference for people because,
Right.
like I tried the Vella, then the serialized stories that were put out by Amazon. I just plunged right in because you know what? The publishers, if they're going to fight with me, I'll walk.
Right.
Not everyone can do that,
Right. Right.
If you're a single mom, which many romance writers are,
Hmm.
yeah, you don't have the freedom I did. So I don't think it's any particular virtue on my part. I think I was just lucky.
Yeah.
Full-time job.
Yeah. That is something that always stuck with me, that I like remember you saying in college when I think I took a publishing course, and you like came in and talked to us, was you were like, you kind of always want to have a backup plan, just as a negotiator, just like as a business person, you want to be
Mhm.
able to say, I can walk away at any time.
Yeah.
You don't, hold the reins of my life. And in some ways, I mean, that's right. That's kind of what a lot of indie authors, that's sort of the perspective that they have, at least in terms of, yeah, they're not beholden
Mhm.
to a publisher, particularly, queer and BIPOC and disabled authors who publishing historically and still today, you know, overlooks and underestimates.
But also, look at Mariana Zapata, for example. She's one of the most successful self-publishing,
Yeah.
started early in Amazon. I've read everything like
Mhm.
many times. So if you
Yeah.
look at her last three books, she has pivoted. She's like, oh, I'm going to write a superhero. Oh, you know
Hmm.
what? My heroine is going to have a magical dog show up in her trailer park because why not? Those are two separate books, by the way. Whereas before she was writing like single moms and a
Yeah.
young woman who was working as at a machine factory. I mean, she was writing books that no one else was going to was going to
Yeah.
publish in trad publishing, like the
Yeah.
hero who was a porn star. She was already doing that, but now she's able to just she can keep pivoting, she can keep changing. She can, you know, I think I'm lucky that I'm far enough in my career that I can do that too.
Hmm.
Not that I'm going to have a magical dog, but if I did, I would totally follow Mariana into the magical dog category. This dog has like a little flame on its tail
Oh
and
my gosh.
it can talk to you. It can
It's like
say
a
love
Pokemon.
in your head. Yes. Yeah, you're right. It's very Pokemon when I think about
Very
it.
Pokemon. Although the talking in the head reminds me of Susan Elizabeth Phillips' Kiss an Angel,
Mm,
and like the heroine in that talks
yeah.
to the circus tiger in her
Yeah.
head all the
Yeah, in the
time.
end, that's such a great book.
It's
In the end, when he can't find her and she's pregnant, she has no money, and he finds her at the zoo. It's like, oh, I love this book
yeah.
because he's a real asshole. He really was. And it was
Yeah.
great that he got his comeuppance.
That book is definitely a man who
Yeah,
grovels. A
grovel,
man who
fabulous
grovels.
grovel. That's
Yeah.
what I'm doing my Kickstarter around because they're all like the Dastardly Duke's rejected bride. They're
Yeah.
basically like grovel books.
Yes.
In my outline, I'm like blah 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 grovel.
Grovel. And I feel like you write a good grovel.
I like a grovel.
Yeah. You like to make them crawl a little bit.
Yeah, they should crawl. Because I think we read romance. We don't want to read about, I mean, I don't anyway. I don't want to read about the perfect guy who I would end up marrying. Like
Right.
Alessandro is fabulous, right? He does the dishes, he did half the stuff with the kids. That's all wonderful. But that would be a very boring romance. My life would
Hmm.
be a very boring romance. I'm lucky to be living it.
Which is funny because when you talk, when I feel like people talk about your life, it's like, oh, Eloisa James, she's married to an Italian knight or a count. I forget what title
Right. Yeah.
your husband had. Like it's if on the surface, it's like
On the
romance
surface.
novel.
Yeah.
It's the HEA.
Underneath, you need the guy who's actually going to do the dishes and can start the car and
Right.
you know, he's a sweetheart. You don't say that about most alpha heroes, right? So you got, I mean, yeah, my life looks what it looks like, but it we haven't had a fight in years. That is not where most of my heroines are. I like a big
Right.
explosion and a big grovel afterwards.
Right. I mean, in this book, they get off on the wrong foot. He insults her to
Yeah.
her face and behind her back,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh, there she is, right? She's a money grubber. She's marrying
Yeah.
this old man, obviously for money, which she did do. She's the
Yeah.
fourth wife.
But she's also very vocal about it. She's like, yeah, I married him for money. And what? He married me because I'm hot.
Yeah.
We both got what
Well,
we want.
I know, but he doesn't expect that. In other words,
Right.
the solicitor strides onto the scene and thinks everything I think is right. I am going to, criticize her and she will feel small. And my heroine's like, screw you. I don't
Yeah.
feel small. I am not small. So,
Yes.
I think women have a tendency to back down when guys are critical. And
Mhm.
maybe sometimes when we should stand up and just say, you know what? Up yours.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's my dating advice.
Right. Up yours. Yeah. The dating advice. I mean, that's unfortunately, in a lot of ways, like the fantasy of the romance novel is that the heroine can go up yours and then the hero falls in love with her a little bit more because she said up yours. He's like, keep being mean to me, please.
Well, I mean, I will say you when you get married, which I've been for a long time, you do have to sort out some stuff with your husband in the beginning.
Yeah.
There have to be some up yours moments. I remember Alexander and I sitting down and I was like, here's what I'm doing, because I'm doing everything in the house because we both were junior professors. And he's like,
Yeah.
here's what I'm doing. And his list got longer and longer and longer. I was like, wow, okay. All right. You need those communication
Yeah.
moments because you just do in a marriage.
Yeah. Well, because, yeah, when people are kind of inherently self-centered, right? And
Yeah.
so you have to make the choice to
Be a partner.
incorporate other people, yeah,
Yeah, being a
into
partner,
your
it's not easy.
view. Yeah. Back to Shakespeare. I was watching all your old reels about Taylor Swift's album and your video about wood and how that is also like Shakespearean. And that song has probably gotten like some of the most flack from people about
Yeah.
that album because it's one big dick joke.
Yeah.
And you point out, you're like, well, Shakespeare is one big dick joke,
Yep.
and you say something really interesting where you're like, Shakespeare is writing for both, the people in the cheap seats and like the crowd at the bottom, and he's making the lowbrow jokes, and he's also making, the commentary and the smart literary references and all of that for all the people, in the balconies. And it kind of got me thinking about how the romance genre does that.
Hmm.
I feel like in a way more so, I think, than other genres. It has this sort of unifying, like we were talking about earlier, this like unifying effect
Hmm.
of there's something in it for everybody, and it can make really insightful
Hmm.
social commentary and like, romance authors can say this brilliant stuff and then but wrap it in this package of this really relatable human experience.
Yeah. If you look up Suzanne Brockman's career, she published a male-male romance like a decade before anyone else. And she published it in trad publishing. and it did very well because romance writers have often been the first to promote accessibility, to promote disability, to promote queer, LGBTQ, all kinds of things, because within the umbrella of in Romancelandia, we accept and we love. We can bring in a lot of things under there that then change people's minds about stuff. I've had a million letters over my life saying, oh, you know, I was born into this kind of family. And I started thinking a lot after reading your book about this particular, it'll be some
Mhm.
issue that I didn't even think about, you know, but
Right.
it's part of Romancelandia is kindness.
Yeah, Romancelandia is kindness, part of that. So like would it be fair to say that romance is like the modern Shakespeare? Am I?
No, no, it wouldn't, alas, because Shakespeare had this incredible ability to
Mhm.
pick up something like Othello or The Merchant of Venice and write, my blood is as red as yours. And we're talking about going to a different level of
Right.
acceptance. And also he just caught the way he wrote, right? The
Mhm.
way he wrote was so different. I'll just tell you this one thing I was just reading. Because he was such a great poet, he
Mhm.
was able to catch things that we certainly don't do in romance. We just aren't good enough writers. So here I'll show you. This is
Yeah.
just an aside that happened in a play, right? Grief fills up the room of my absent child, lies in his bed, walks up and down with me, puts on his pretty looks, repeats his words, remembers me of all his gracious parts, stuffs out his vacant garments with his form. Thus have I reason to be fond of grief. That's,
Mhm.
that's Hamnet, right? It's
Right.
Hamnet, but it's also he's taking his life and he's putting it in words that everyone who's lost a child or feared losing a child is
Yeah.
there with him. That doesn't happen in romance. I can write about love in a way that everyone who's been in love might remember,
Mhm.
but I don't write The Merchant of Venice. I don't write Othello.
Yeah.
I don't even write
Yeah.
Romeo and Juliet. My teenagers do not commit suicide. So
Well, thank God.
yeah, but that driving emotion, the
Right.
biggest driving emotions are not necessarily love. They're
Right.
fear, their hate, their terror, their suicidal ideation in the case of
Mhm.
Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah. But do you see, I mean, we do see that in certain romance, that deals with grief. And like, yes, the overarching emotion is love, but a lot,
People
I feel like,
definitely do. Yeah, they
yeah, that
tell
you
stories that
process.
are, I just haven't seen anyone who writes like
Yeah.
Shakespeare.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I am a Shakespeare
that's
professor, so
nobody's
no,
Shakespeare
nobody's
in
Shakespeare
any
because also
genre.
he's writing in poetry, right? We
Right.
write in prose. And so what he does
It's,
in
yeah.
25 words, we're taking 40 pages or something. So
Mhm.
yeah, people have talked wonderfully about grief. I was just dealing with a performing arts company that's going to give out copies of one of my early books where the heroine loses her baby. So I mean,
Mhm.
I've done it, right? That's a tearjerker. It's called Midnight Pleasures.
Yeah.
Total tearjerker. And I did because I was afraid of losing my child, and the child was born 5 months early. So yeah,
Yeah.
you put your deepest emotions into the book. I'm not saying we don't. A successful
Yeah.
romance, and that one was page turner of the week for People magazine. That has that huge emotion, right?
Yeah.
But it's still not Shakespeare. I can't. None of us can, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
None of us can.
none of us can. So.
But that is why Shakespeare is still such like an influence. Like I would argue almost neck and neck with like Jane Austen in terms of
Yeah,
how many people write Shakespeare retellings and
sure.
romance novels, and not even just like retelling of Romeo and Juliet where nobody dies at the end, but As You Like It,
Yeah.
like Twelfth Night, all the comedies, and you're writing a King Lear inspired.
And there are a
book.
million King Lears.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is he didn't make up things like girls dressing as boys because
right,
actually people were doing it in real life, but also
right.
the other plays. But those are the plays that brought that idea to us. It brought it to Georgette Hare, who had her heroines
Yeah.
dressing as boys and running around in carriages in the countryside. So a lot of the smaller romance ideas that we have, just the idea of a challenge, right? If you look at Measure for Measure, he's like, I don't love you. They're forced to get married. I don't love you. And until you have my baby in your belly and my ring on your finger, I'm not going to have anything to do with you. Of course, by the end of the play, she's done it. She's got it.
Yeah.
Right. But she had to do it in secret and da da da
Yeah.
da. In real life, that marriage is going to be a disaster. But that idea of the forced marriage that
Mhm.
is essentially a challenge where he's like, you know, you do what you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah, Taming of the Shrew
Yeah,
too.
exactly. And then grovel, grovel, grovel at the end.
Right.
So.
Right. Do you have any authors that you've like read recently or you're reading right now that you think are doing Shakespeare retellings well?
Well, a lot of people are doing great Shakespeare retellings. Yeah, I mean, I haven't read any like in the last few minutes, but I can tell you,
Or just all-time favorite Shakespeare retellings, romance?
oh wow, I'm not good at
Sorry to put you on, you don't have to.
yeah, because I did teach a class on Shakespeare retellings at one point, but nothing is coming to my mind, which is
Yeah.
crazy. Sonali Dev has written wonderful
Yes.
Shakespeare retellings. So I guess I'll just lean on her at the moment.
Not only that, yes,
Yeah,
yeah. No, it's
you know.
it's the common problem of, oh, recommend me a book, and you're like, I've never read a book ever in my life, actually. I
Christina Dodd. Christina Dodd has got
Yeah.
a wonderful series of books that come out of um let me just look up what the name of it is. They come out of Romeo and Juliet, um,
Uh-huh.
but they've taken off from there and they are mysteries. Daughter of Fair Verona by Christina Dodd. And
Mm.
that's about Romeo and Juliet. And then, and Thus With a Kiss I Die is like the next one from 25. And, there's more coming out. She's built an entire world around Verona and Romeo and Juliet
Mm.
getting married and like surviving and, solving
Nice.
mysteries the way you do, right?
Perfect. Yeah, why
As
not?
yeah,
Also solving
yeah,
crimes.
right.
Sure.
The witty and irreverent historical mystery featuring Rosaline, the eldest daughter of Romeo and
Okay.
Juliet, who is a reluctant spinster navigating her famous lover's dramatic love life while solving the murder of her betrothed, Duke Stefano. Yeah, it's fun.
And I love a Rosaline
Yeah.
retelling,
There's a
justice
lot
for
of
Rosaline.
Rosalines too, or
Yeah.
Rosaline is all over YA. Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and there was like a Rosaline movie, I think, that
Mhm.
came out.
Yeah.
That's
The
yeah.
letter, the ones where they have the letters in Venice, that was a Rosaline too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So,
love that. Quickly
mhm.
pitch The Last Lady B to the listeners. Like what do you want them? What do you like? This is I know everyone's gonna love, and if you don't love it, then you have bad taste.
The Last Lady V is it is gothic adjacent in that there is a very friendly ghost who don't doesn't speak, but I would say when I'm talking about Last Lady B, what I love is Evie, the heroine. She rescues a piglet in the first scene. She
Yeah.
is she married for money to an older man. She's going up there. His first three wives have died. She's like, oh my God, I can't wait to meet a ghost on the on the, she's just funny.
Yeah.
She's looking forward to meeting a ghost, and then she meets this solicitor, and he is bad-tempered and critical. And she finds out that her husband is taking her to a household where his longtime mistress is living. Oh, shock, right?
Yeah.
Look at Bridgerton, the latest Bridgerton, The Question with the
Right.
Mistress. My heroine's husband actually lives with his mistress 1 month a year and brings his wife up there. All
Mhm.
three of the wives have been up there. So,
Interesting.
yeah, when I started watching Bridgerton, I was like, hey, this is interesting. So there you go. That's my pitch. I think it'll make you laugh. I think it's very sexy and I think it's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very yeah, I loved it.
Great.
And
Thank
I
you.
love that you have, I know the pig doesn't have a flaming tail, but I do feel like you have a
Peony.
flair for like fun, unusual animal sidekicks. Like there's a skunk in the Wilds series, you know?
Yeah, the baby skunk is great. Peony the piglet is
Yeah,
fabulous. You know, her ribbons are always matching the heroine's dress. These are
perfect.
details that, if I had a pig of my own, that's what I would like.
Yeah, exactly. And then there, the kids get pigs, everyone gets a pig by
Yeah.
the end of the book.
By the end of the book, there's lots of pigs, but let me also point out that pig saves her life. So the pig is
Yes.
not just there as accoutrement. The pig is
No.
more like a handbag,
Yeah, the pig is
crucial to the plot of the story.
as it should be, as
Oh,
it
yeah,
should
it
be.
should be if I had a pig.
It's Chekhov's pig. Like, don't mention a pig if the pig's not going to be
Right.
crucial. All right. Yes, so listener, you can get again, like I said, the Lady Bee comes out next week, May 12th. Get it if you haven't already subscribed to Julia Quinn's subscription box to get the fancy edition. You can also just go get it at your local indie bookstore. And Eloisa, where can they find you?
They can find me online on Facebook in Linda Castle, my group, or on Instagram. I'm on there a lot. And, I answer DMs, or you can always go to eloisajames.com and contact me there through the, contact Eloisa thing. I will say that the Ripped Bodice, which is a wonderful indie bookstore, is giving out a very cool bookmark for everyone who pre-ordered. So when you see this, if you want to rush off to the Rich Bodice, and I'm going to sign them all on the day it comes out, so I can personalize your copy, which is always fun.
Oh,
So
I love that.
in case you want to, the Ripped Bodice in Brooklyn has a portal where you can buy a book, and I will personalize it. And again, you can find that on my website too.
Yeah. And it'll be linked in the description of this episode, listener, as
Great.
well.
Thank you. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
having me. This was a
Thanks
huge
so much for
pleasure.
coming. It was so nice to see you. I have to say, I've been like looking at your background is gorgeous. By the way,
I had to
just
hide.
everything
You see,
about
I had
it.
to hide all this stuff back here. There's a whole bunch of crap that I have to get rid of and
Well,
get
you were
out.
successful, but
So I
the
put the
flowers
daffodils
and the
over there.
pink and the crown molding and the
Oh, good.
wainscoting,
Yay. Good.
phenomenal. And listener, I'm Allison Finch. You can follow me at the Allison Finch on Instagram and Threads. You can follow the podcast at We Read It What Night on Instagram, Threads, Facebook, and TikTok. You can email the podcast, We Read It What Night at gmail.com. And all of those places are great places to send comments about this episode, questions, suggestions for books that you want me to do a deep dive on, suggestions for guests, for authors that you'd like to see on, and topics for me to talk about with those authors. If you want to support the podcast, the best free way to do it is to leave a rating and review wherever you're listening, as well as to share with your friends, family, and followers. And if you have a little bit of extra room in your budget this month, then you can also buy me a coffee, visit my Etsy shop, or purchase any of the books we talked about in this episode from my bookshop.org affiliate link. All of those will be linked in the description of this episode. Thanks so much for listening. Godspeed, comrades.